What's up, my buddy?
What's up, brother?
How you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How about you?
Another big smile on your face. Every time we have a guest, you're smiling ear to ear before the guest comes on.
I know. You know what? We're just going to jump right into this, right? Because
we always do, and because I mean, look, if we have a guest on, they want to hear the guest. They don't want to hear us yap about something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, it's going to be good. But yeah, I'm excited about this. We are definitely starting to make a little niche into the boxing world with Round 14 podcast. So yeah, we discussed earlier that you're going to have the intro here. Take it away.
Yeah. So I got to meet this gentleman about 2 years ago at the Turning Stone Casino for the International Boxing Hall of Fame. It was the fist casting where the boxers go and they have their fist casted. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to give you a quick, brief synopsis before we bring him on. He was born in Binghamton, New York. I'm just on the thruway from there. He has over 30 books. He went to a rival high school of mine at FM. He also graduated from the same SUNY Oswego that both of my kids graduated. I'd like to introduce Mark Allen Baker, author.
Gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you, Rick, for that wonderful introduction.
You're so welcome.
Both your kids went to Oswego. That's wonderful.
They both went there, and they both graduated.
Wonderful. You can tell them you met the guy who brought Bruce Springsteen and Billy Joel to SUNY Oswego.
Oh, I will.
I think programming board back then, so we were able to land a date with Bruce during the Born to Run tour and a date with Billy Joel during Turnstiles.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so, I saw them both at the Carrier Dome.
Yeah, boy, incredible. Both of them are just outstanding.
So you're. I'm going to sidestep this a little bit for a second. You're kind of a local boy. I'm in Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
I grew up in Camillus.
Oh my gosh! So I'm sure we know a lot of people. Well, this will get you. We were talking earlier about the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And I met Ed Brophy because I owned a sports bar in Liverpool, New York called Bleachers.
And I used to play softball for you.
Did you?
Get out, really?
I feel like we're at a reunion here, guys. I mean, no, that's a bar that I own with some great partners that I had. And all of a sudden, Ed Brophy pops in. This is in 1990. And he says, I want to talk to the owner because we had a museum in there, Rick. I don't know if you remember.
I remember.
Museum with real stuff. So you'd walk in. Tony was incredible. You walk in and there's uniforms from Roger Clemens, Wade Boggs, a Mickey Mantle hat, a Babe Ruth baseball. Because we were going to do it right. We said, if we're going to do a sports bar, let's put some bucks in it. So we built about a $250,000 museum, including a full boxing ring that Ray Rinaldi set up for us. Ray. So anyway, it was so much fun. And the boxers, long story short, we actually sponsored. It started out, I helped Eddie out. So I was a volunteer, went to a chairperson, and then he came to the restaurant. So we started sponsoring him the induction ceremony. So we sponsored the cocktail party in the early years when it was on the grounds, and then it moved to the castle down the street there. And Ed came in that one day, said, you want to help? Because I just love what you've got in here. And I said, sure, I'd love. So that started us out. And ever since, it's been a good relationship, through the years. But I've been right from the very start. It's just been great. I'm just so proud of all the people I met in Canastota, the great people, and most of them, and I was there in the early days. It was Chuck Segroy was one of them, Chuck and Ada, Doug Gustin and the Gustins, and everybody with the Brophy family. Boy, done a magnificent job.
Ed and Jeff are great people. Walt Jr. and
absolutely.
Speaking of Ray Rinaldi, Scotty Mitten said to say hi.
Oh, he's a great guy. I only met him a few years back. What a wonderful person. He's so dynamic. I mean, he's perfect for that museum. He could be a great spokesman for anybody.
Absolutely. He's a great friend. My wife grew up with him.
Oh my gosh.
And Mattydale.
I can't believe what a small world you guys have.
I know, right?
Amazing.
I know.
What do you know?
Anyway, I know, right? I'm down here in Florida. No, I don't know.
We're in Florida.
Over by
Where-
Tampa.
Over in Tampa. We're in Tampa.
I'm actually outside of Tampa. Palm Harbor is the town I live in.
Harbor, sure. Okay, I live in Connecticut and outside of Sarasota. So I lived down there as well for about a quarter of the year, roughly. So I have family in Tampa.
Sarasota's good.
Yeah, so I have a lot of friends in Tampa down that way. So
Scotty wanted me to ask you. He's almost 95% sure of this, but he said that your father might have played pro ball.
that's correct. My dad was signed in the early days with the Giants and the Pirates, and he worked his way up to what was almost AAA at the time period. His pitching coach in spring training was Carl Hubble when he was with the Giants, and it was great growing up. Now I have no baseball ability, none whatsoever. My father would take me so much for heredity, right? So my dad used to take me into the dugouts when some of the older Giant Charlie Fox was one of my dad's managers, and he went on to, I think he managed the Giants in 70, 71, that time period, all the way up to 72 maybe. And so I would get to go in the dugout. And one of the interesting boxing connections is my dad played with Rocky Marciano's brother, Louis Marciano.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn.
so that's where a lot of, and my grandfather was a club boxer in Binghamton.
Okay.
So that's where all the boxing kind of put together and fit in. So
Right. Well, in reading your book, Titletown, I took a definite interest in the fact of you got to mention the Erie Canal and, a lot of stuff to go with that. I actually grew up in front or behind the Erie Canal and spent my childhood playing on the Erie Canal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when I was reading Titletown, I'm like, oh my God, it's one of those things where you just took for granted because I was there. It was like,
Oh yeah. Oh
Right.
yeah. How often that happens too,
Right.
The reason Titletown came about because when I was volunteering at the museum, Rick, and you can identify with this, everybody was coming up and asking the same questions over and over. Tony, they'd ask me, okay, so why Canastota? What's the deal with Billy Backus and Carmen Basilio? Well, how does Carmen fit with Ray Robinson? So what I tried to do with Titletown is put all the answers to all their questions into one book to kind of save me from having to go through the dialogue over and over and over again. But that book has really served a nice purpose. I get a lot of compliments all the time on it, and it's small, it's little. I wish it would have been bigger. Maybe someday we'll do an add-on to it, but I'm so proud. It's one of those books, Rick, that you feel like you had to do it. You know what I mean? It's because when you're involved with the Hall of Fame, you feel obligated to do certain things, and I felt obligated to write it. So that's
And you're the official historian for the International Boxing.
one of them. There's a letter when you go in the museum. There's a bunch of historians. When we started out, it was Ed was working with Herb Goldman. He was working with Hank Kaplan and a couple other ones he was working with. And what we would do, what happened was, obviously when they first started, it was adding a handful of people, right, volunteers. So I said, why don't I take over the press stuff? So I started doing these press kits, and I would bind the press kits, and there would be long bios, short bios, quotes, and then lists of all the inductees and everything. And so that got me going in that direction. So I was doing that at the beginning until Jeff finally became of age, and I had to move, and he kind of took over the whole press and worked with Mike. So that's where the whole fit. So if you go back a few years, I don't know, 15, 16 years, you'll start seeing bound press kits in the early 90s that I published with that and Herb and Hank Kaplan. And what a pleasure working for those guys, especially Kaplan. This is before the internet. Kaplan was the boxing internet. Most of it was stacks of magazines on his floor.
Yeah.
And he was great to work with because he was gospel, of course, being a former editor of The Ring and everything. And he was sharp as nails when it came to
I
stuff.
was just going to mention the Ring magazine, which that came out in
1922.
Yeah.
Yeah.
February 22 is when it was. You know what? I just have to say this because it's just the amount of information. Because I just kind of finished up with Johnny Kilbane, your book, Johnny Kilbane.
Oh.
The one that you sent me. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So intriguing. The amount of information and historical facts that you put in these books, like, the founding of the Boston Red Sox in 1911, and just odd information, but that fits with the time period as, the years are progressing through their careers. It's truly remarkable, the amount of information and the wealth of knowledge that you have.
Well, thank you. Actually try to, what I learned from Hank, and that's where it comes from, is you've got to dig. And then I have McFarland as a publisher I really wanted to work for. A lot of good authors on there. When you go through, you'll see them, Mike Silver, Colleen Aycock. There's a bunch of them. You'll recognize all the names as you go through the catalog McFarland offers. And I wanted to work for them because they're an academic publisher. So they want you to be real solid with your citations. And in the case of finding fights, Hank told me, he said, you really need 3 independent sources, especially and even more when it comes to the no decision era, which Kilbane fought in.
Right.
So, literally, and I try to take people through it in the Kilbane book and show them the dichotomy between how you can take 10 people in a room and 5 people will see a fight one way and the other 5 will see it the opposite.
Right.
Really, it's incredible, but I just do the dirty work. I confirm every fight because if you go back through some of the books, you'll see a lot. I've discovered a lot of fights that weren't known, and I can't. Once I get the 3 sources, I confirm it and I put it in the back of the book.
Well, I did see that. First of all, I guess I never Tony. I don't know if you ever knew this or not. They used to go 20 rounds.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I ever really. I remember the old 14 rounds. Back with Ali and Frazier and
they were 15 rounds.
Or 15 rounds. I'm sorry.
But no, the older guys, like some of the historical people that Mark's writing about, 20, 25 rounds these guys
I did
are going.
not know that.
And then they would fight the next day.
No decision.
Yeah, in the case of Kilbane, he actually went 25 rounds, which he called was the toughest fight he ever fought. And it was against a gentleman named Tommy Kilbane, who was also from Cleveland. Not related, supposedly, though I find it so hard to believe because they actually lived in the same neighborhood.
Oh.
I went through Ancestry, and I'm going through, and this is the way my head works. So I go crazy with this stuff. So I'm going through Ancestry, trying to piece them together, but I couldn't do it. But I go through but I did put Tommy Kilbane's record together. It didn't make it in this book. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, my publisher, I write the book that you guys want to see. That's what I write.
Yeah.
You're buying this. It's expensive. I want to give you. I don't want you to get up from the chair. I want if you fall asleep, that's okay. You won't be the first person. but I don't want you to have to look anything up. So I always, in the back, try to put special notes. I try to think, if I mention something, what are they going to ask?
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys going to ask and say, why didn't Mark put in these losses, or what is he working toward?
Yeah. I mean, the glossary or the index at the end in the bibliography. I mean, this is like, it's like a thesaurus.
It's its own encyclopedia.
It certainly is, and it was really cool. Is the fact that how you broke it down, especially with Johnny Kilbane, is I found that there were 3 fights that he fought. Well, 2 of the 3 he actually fought in Syracuse. Mm-hmm. One was canceled because of the weight.
Yeah, I think he had a problem with one of those. I think it was Tommy Ryan had a gym that was really popular in the early days in Syracuse. A lot of people don't know that. They were fighting a lot, I think, at the Alhambra, which was kind of a skating rink. It burned down. I forget which year it burned down in. But anyway, one of the fights, I don't think he got paid for, if I recall correctly. And you'll excuse me on occasion for forgetting some things because I actually wrote this book. I worked 2 years ahead.
Okay.
I'm actually 2 books beyond this already.
Oh my God!
Oh, jeez.
So,
to your point, he February 11th he fought Tommy Bresnahan in Syracuse.
Okay.
And then he also fought let's see, I have it. Oh, March 16th was Young Murphy, but there was no fight. And then at the end of that chapter you put down that they actually went to court.
Yep, it did go to court, and he finally got paid. He finally got a check from Tommy Ryan
because the promoter was sued, and they went to court. And
I think somebody's working on a new book on Ryan, and I'm going to be excited to see if they even include that in the book.
Right. It's just the amount of knowledge.
Mark, how do you choose who you're going to write about? Is there any certain selection that you say, I want to write about this boxer, or I want to write about this decade and look for the better boxer? Can you give us a little insight on how the process works for you?
A lot of most of what I do, Kilbane was a process. I had written a bio on Abe Attell, and Abe Attell was obviously a Hall of Fame featherweight. And Attell had the reins for, I think he held it for 9 years, something I should know, right, to the day. But Kilbane came along, and all of a sudden Kilbane takes it and runs with it for 11 years and 3 months.
Yeah.
And has a title longer than anybody. And a lot of it, Tony, comes from, I like obscure fighters. I like obscure fighters who are recognized at the elite level, like in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And having been in the Hall of Fame and in the bowels that we used to go downstairs and dig through all the boxes and put all the information together, there's a lot of holes. So I'm hoping that what I'm doing here is really filling holes that just to ease up Jeff's job a little bit when the requests come in.
Yeah.
Jeff owes me dinner. Anyway, to ease his job a little bit and put it all in a single source. I like obscure, but I like obscure elite type individuals. Right. I don't like writing about I want to break new ground too. I don't want to write what somebody else has already written. I don't want to go down. The other thing too, and I've dodged a couple of questions on this in the past, is I want to present boxing in a good light. I'm aware of all the mob influence and all that stuff. Right, and, but if I'm going to write, I'll give you a good example. If I'm going to write a book on Tony Canzonieri, okay, yeah, there was mob influences, right? I knew about a lot of that, but this is his first biography. So why don't I compliment him by really talking about his skills, his background, what he did, where he went from there? I didn't want to get into all the bad, I didn't want to get into it. Now, another biography came out right afterwards, and that I heard about, and they were going to cover a lot of that. So that's kind of, I actually appreciated that, because Canzonieri deserves a lot of books, in my opinion. Okay. But I like the fact that I write about a lot of these people that have fallen through the cracks for the last 50, 70 years, I mean, some of the stories, like Lou Ambers. Lou Ambers came about because my wife is from the Herkimer Valley, and outside the town of Ilion, close to Herkimer. Yeah. So I wanted to work I heard about Lou Ambers, obviously, and I said, if I don't do it, I'm going to shoot myself 1,000 times, because my mother-in-law used to work at the Historical Society, so I'm like, I've got to do it. And I went through the archives there, and I said, what a great story of a wonderful family guy, and of Herkimer, and of upstate New York, the Mohawk Valley, and all the history there. And it was so precious. They had his wedding photos. They had the actual paddle that his teacher paddled him with in grade.
That's awesome.
I've never seen that, and that's the extent of some of the stuff they have at the Historical Society.
That's amazing.
Such a pleasure. I must get a note a week on just Lou Ambers, saying, "Oh, what a beautiful story!" That they like seeing all the pictures of the women on the phone, and the wedding pictures and all this. And it was really fun. It's just so nice to dig these people out of obscurity. I have a guy that always gives me a hard time. He says, when are you going to start writing about country music, Taylor Swift, and get away from all these guys nobody's heard of, And I'm like, that's just not me. I mean, right. Taylor Swift is going to have hundreds of books written about it, and she should, because she's that talented. But a guy like Lou Ambers,
Wally Pep,
I have one or two at best. So
you did well, or Willie Pep. I actually have a signed card, like a baseball card of his, boxing card.
Yep.
Of his, and you know what? I put it away for safekeeping. and I can't figure out where I put it.
It's called the senior moment, and
Yeah, exactly.
You know, every once in a while those things creep up. You know.
Yeah.
Willie
Mark,
was
just to touch base real quick on what you said your editor said to you about writing about people that people know. That's kind of really not, in my opinion, a fair estimate of what you're doing, because these boxers, you don't. All right, so he's a 5-time world champion.
yeah.
Now, in that time period, if you were a 5-time world champion of boxing, you were known in the area. You were, you know. So it's not. Yeah, they are obscure because they're not the Joe Louis or something along those lines, but they earn their own notoriety, and you're just bringing it out to people that are obviously, you know, not around anymore. So for us to see that in a generation now, 70, 50, 60 years later, you're bringing up the notoriety of that person that at that time they had notoriety and they were somebody, so to speak.
Oh yeah, you couldn't walk down the street with Tony Canzoneri, who dressed to the nines, and not stop him, and he'll sign autographs and talk. And then he had a successful entertainment career right after that. And I had the Canzoneri family actually contacted me, so I had a lot of discussions with them about the book. But they loved the book, and they really did, and they're happy to see so much about Tony coming out now over time. But he was, and that's the thing, we're bringing him out. Now, Willie, I knew, I spent a lot of time with, and being from Hartford here, of course, you know, I always liked Willie. Eddie called me one time. I put in one of the books. Ed called me when I lived in Syracuse, and he said, Mark, I got Willie coming up. He's driving up, and I don't have time for him. Can you host him the whole day? And I'm like, oh, God, Ed, I mean, really? I mean, he's going to be able to sit still with me for a whole day? But anyway, I did. I tell the whole story, and I spent the whole day with Willie, and we went through everything. And, you know, from the plane crashes, and I was to his divorces, you know, a lot of which I didn't put in the book, obviously. Sure. And it was funny. We ate over at McDonald's, and he must have been stopped by 6 people while we were eating lunch at McDonald's. And he's showing him the watch that Graziano gave him. Bob Hope gave him a watch too, and I don't know which one. I think he said it was Graziano gave him the one he had out, but I know Bob Hope gave him one too. But Willie, at least I met, and I've gone everywhere where he's been here. I've gone to all of his houses here. I visited his grave. Okay. You know, I worked on we had a film here about Willie Pep. I don't know if you know that 2 years ago they filmed a whole biopic on him. And I contributed an interview that I did with Willie to the screenwriters. Oh, wow. And they came to Hartford and they shot here. And the main character, James Matteo, plays Willie Pep. Matteo was in the Band of Brothers. He's been in a lot of films. And he trained at my friend's gym in downtown Hartford. So I got a chance to go down there and watch him train, pictures and all that stuff. And they filmed here. And last time I knew, they had a premiere here, but last time I knew, Steve Loff, who wrote the screenplay and did a magnificent job, was having trouble just nailing down distribution, which direction he wanted to go with the film. But when it does come out, I do highly recommend you seeing it. I know a lot of people in the film, and it'll be a good one. Anything on Willie, God bless.
Yeah, well, as you can see, we're directly tied. And, you know, but to bring that full circle is the relevance, what Tony and I talk about, and we talk about this with a lot of guests, is the relevance that Rocky has from 1976 till this moment today is the same type of relevance that you are promoting and you're putting out there for these fighters, these boxers from, you know, way back when, and you're bringing them into, you know, this century and further on, so that they'll be remembered and never forgotten.
I hope they're not. And when I did Kilbane, I mean, I have relatives on my mother's side who lived in a little place called Ennis, Ireland. That's about 32 kilometers from Achill Island, where Johnny Kilbane came from. And his family came from Achill Island. Johnny was born in Cleveland, but his family was from Achill Island. And everybody knows it was like 2,000 people on Ackle Island at the time when his parents came over here. But it was such a pleasure to write about an area where I have family links to and everything. And it was fascinating. And I wrote to one person, I said, gosh, we share some surnames in our lineage, my family and Kilbane's. And he's one of those guys I wrote about him, God, and I'm saying to myself, God, please let me be related to this guy. Because he is such a nice guy, nice man, and a good family man. I mean, when you read about him losing his daughter, oh my, it's heartbreaking. I mean, some of these books, I got to be honest with you, and it's going to sound weird, but you work on them for a year, and you finally get to the end. It's like a musician finishing up a song. You get teary-eyed.
Sure.
Because you're like, oh my gosh, I mean, this man is so incredible. I did it with Ambers, I did it with Kilbane, and some of the other guys, I mean, they all have parts of my life in certain ways. And
Sure.
I love what I do. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for so many great fans. The good thing, too, guys, is that the boxing fans now are so intelligent. It's like Moneyball came in to boxing. And their expectations for books now is like, don't just tell me, make sure they're facts. The facts are checked. Give me the detail. I want detail, you know, and we don't have all the measurements baseball has. I mean, we have, you know, some of the punching and stuff like that. How many? I can't think. But anyway, we have some numbers. We just don't have what baseball has. And I'd like to try to give the reader everything he needs and more.
Absolutely. No, it's just simply amazing. And it's just, like I said, you know, to bring the past to the present, like in the relevance of it, you know, like I said, with Rocky and with Tony, you know,
like you said before, Rick, Rocky is around, and we're discussing it almost 50 years later, because it has relevance, it has a story, it has heart. It's almost just like you were saying earlier about Born to Run with Bruce Springsteen. The album is still being played today because it has heart, it has relevancy, the lyrics, the music. And it's the same thing with these fighters. If these fighters, they had no, you know, you were almost creating it, it wouldn't continue to move forward.
Thank
but
you.
the life that they lived and the training they did and the titles they won, you know, that's going to move forward, and people will relate to that no matter what decade you're in.
And the caliber, and these guys forget the caliber and how prolific some of these fighters are. I mean, some of them fought as many times as some members of the Hall of Fame in a whole career. They fought in 1 year. I mean, guys who like Johnny Dundee, who routinely fought over 30 fights in a year.
Oh, geez.
That's what I think he did in 1 year. And
2 to 3 fights a month.
I mean, it was an occupation. It was like delivering the milk. You know, I've got to get up. I've got to train. I've got to, and it was a job, and did it. And people forget it and how competitive it was. And boy, you go back and some of these, I'm just amazed at the talent some of these people had. Just incredible.
And how tough they are. I mean, the gloves back then, it was like putting, you know, nothing on your hands.
Yeah, leather gloves.
I mean, the damage it did.
Yeah, 6 ounces in many cases. Sometimes we're going all the way back to 4, and then almost. And the stories, I mean, you know, before they had laws on bandages, I mean, Benny Leonard would use electrical tape, and there's all sorts that people come up with, and the plaster, of course, we all know about.
Yeah.
You know, but and Canzoneri had to have his gloves specially made because his hands were so small.
Oh, no kidding.
Interesting. And but then there's the politics, and the trickery is fun, you know. And I know there's already boxing books about the tricks that these guys played, but it's interesting when you see the politics. The politics is incredible, and how they would work things in, and who would do what to who, and what referee, and where, and who's related to who. And in case of Kilbane, they thought he was related to Tommy Kilbane. He wasn't, and the confusion and of different names and fighters taking different names. And New York State used to have, speaking of different names, used to have a great bootleg boxing circuit. And I actually put a directory in the back of the Ambers book. So, because a lot of people have talked to me, said, "Oh, my dad used to do bootleg fighting, you know, back in the 20s and 30s here. And I found there's a whole circuit because Ambrose was on it. He used to ride the rails out of Herkimer
Okay.
and ride into Binghamton and fight. And there was a couple fighters that they were whatever town they were in, they were like Killer Johnson here, they were like Dynamite Dan over here. They would pick, it's the same guy. He was just doing the same thing, different places, making money. But the bootleg circuit in New York was fantastic, and sometimes I heard Carmen did a lot more bootleg fighting than people think. He told me that he did a lot out at the fairgrounds. But
you remember he had his Basilio's food stand out there.
Yeah, he actually in the old days, he actually did some bootleg fights in one of the buildings. I guess he told me, believe it or not.
With the fairgrounds?
Yeah, out that way. But it wouldn't surprise me.
You know what? It wouldn't surprise me.
No,
My question for you is this: you grow up and your dad's playing ball, right?
Yeah.
How did you get focused into boxing?
A lot of it was just I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the whole thing. I wanted to write. I thought what Ed Brophy was doing at the Hall of Fame was important. Mm-hmm. I loved the town. I loved the people in the town. And the more I got into it, the more I started reading. The first bio I did was on Battling Nelson. The reason I did that is because here's this incredible guy called Battling Nelson who won all these titles and was such a prolific fighter, over 130 fights. And all of a sudden, by like 1905, he drops off the radar screen. And I read he did an autobiography. It was about 1905 or 1908 that he wrote up to that point where he's visiting the White House, and then you don't hear about him again. And he dies in 1954. He died. So, and I'm like, well, what happened from 1908 to 1954? Yeah. Where's now? What happened to him? And so I loved piecing that story together and finding out. He went from rags to riches to rags. Fascinating story. He's a movie. He's a maid. He fell in love with a countess. He went from visiting Teddy Roosevelt in the White House to dumpster diving to eat. That's how bad the transition was for him. But and again, and you feel sad because these guys, a lot of them go through so much, with the dementia and depression and God, what do you know now about mental illness? Thank God.
I'm drawing a blank on it, but I remember, and I'm sorry I can't remember the fighter's real name at the moment, but I remember the movie Cinderella Man where Russell
Braddock.
I'm sorry,
James J. Braddock.
Yes, James J. Braddock, where he was heavyweight champion.
Yeah,
and then
Bear.
Then went to nothing.
Yeah,
and wound up working the docks. With a broken right hand or something like that.
He would do the stand-ins at the docks, and that's a fascinating fight too. And I talked to Colleen Aycock, is a good writer. She writes for McFarland. She did the Bear biography, and she was telling me a lot about that fight. I've heard that it was thrown, that Bear threw it, but I don't know. I mean, I thought Ron Howard did a great job with the film. I love the film.
Yeah.
I mean,
have you ever thought about screenwriting, Mark?
No, I don't. I've been asked, and I've worked with screenwriters, and I'm actually working with one now on a different film that I hope comes out. And but I haven't been. I'm hoping that one of these days that someone will take a look at the books and say, "Why don't we do a movie on Nelson? Right. We can do a little something on it."
Which you have over 30.
Well, yeah, just a dozen on boxing. I also, I did a book on the Syracuse Nats basketball team.
Yep.
1955.
The Hemingway and the Keys.
Yeah, Hemingway. You're like this, Tony. I got to meet all of Hemingway's living sparring partners in the 80s. Yeah. I always wanted to know, where was the boxing ring? What was he like? Was he that good? I mean, what was Hemingway really like? Yeah. So I was down speaking at the Hemingway Days conference in Key West, Florida. And all these educators are there. I mean, the chairman of Yale's, English department, Stanford, and all the heavy hitters are in there. And I've got a lot of Hemingway research materials, and they're wanting to talk to me about access to the materials. And I said, come on, I'll go buy you lunch at one of the restaurants. And I said, I can't go, gentlemen. I apologize. And they said, why? I said, because I'm meeting the last 3 sparring partners Hemingway ever sparred with who are still alive, so I went and had lunch with them. So, Anyway, but I had to, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I had
God, yeah.
anyway, right? So, but I did meet. I met her, Ernest's sister-in-law, and I met Tony Terracino, who owned Captain Tony's, were the original
Tony's,
South. Yeah. Tony's up. He reminded me of Tony Graziano, Tony Terracino, and he's a bundle. I mean, talk about a crazy guy and just a wonderful. Got so many memories. So I had a chance to talk to Tony Terracino and
Captain Tony, is that from Jimmy Buffett? Tony?
Yeah, that's down the keys.
Tony from Jimmy Buffett, same Captain
We're both big parrot heads too. So
So anyway, but he was running a casino ship at the time. I was in the Keys talking to him. So we talked about Hemingway, but it was interesting. I actually had one of his sparring partners work on an intro to one of my early boxing books. Okay. And Kermit Shine Forbes was his name. And a lot of stories about Hemingway with Forbes. So, but I got to meet the grandkids and all that stuff.
So what did the sparring partners say about him?
He wasn't as good as people think. There's a story, Tony, where Dempsey wouldn't spar with him. He was dying to have Dempsey spar with him because he was going to lambaste him, right? I mean, Dempsey would have killed him.
Yeah.
And so somehow he talks Tony into doing it, right? And so he throws a couple close punches at Tony, and Tony's offended. So Gene Tony just rolls back and shoots a super fast, solid right that lands within inches of his nose, and scared the living daylights out of him. and he backed off really bad. Really,
he's like, I missed on purpose. So
yeah, he did. He knew that Tony pulled. He pulled the punch. And,
that's funny.
I love that. I mean, it's those kind of things you love. The tidbits and things like that.
Sure.
But the Hemingway book fit for me. It was something that I'm sick of going down, Tony. You go down to Key West for years, and they take you to 5 places that Hemingway went. Well, I found 72 that he went.
Wow.
So quite a bit of difference. So it's a nice book. It was a lot of fun to do. A couple mistakes. It happens. You got editors, right? So something bad here and there, but you do what you can do. So
yeah. Do
what
you
else
have
on
a
your question list there, Rick?
Oh, I was gonna say, do you have a favorite from a different in every era, favorite fighter from every era, or up until now? Do you have anybody you gravitate towards? Or?
Yeah, I certain fighters. I actually wrote some of them down because I get this question a lot. Carmen was one of my favorites because I liked the man so much, Carmen Basilio. I liked Willie a lot because I spent time with him. Jack Dempsey was an early favorite, though the first fighter I ever corresponded with letters was Gene Tunney, here in Connecticut back in the old days. I like a fighter called Harry Wills, who never had a chance to fight Dempsey, but would have been one of the best fights. I would have given anything to be ringside with Jack Dempsey and Harry Wills, but they never fought. But I like Wills. I like Joe Louis. I like a lot, of course, and a Patriot, of course. I think the world of Joe Louis. So, but those are some. I like obscure fighters too. There's always one or two that come through the ranks. You're like, wow, he's pretty interesting. Especially here in Connecticut, some of the guys. Then they're never going to be in the Hall of Fame, but they might be someone you kind of has a little fire in them. And you kind of like that. Even with the girls now, some of the female fighters, boy, some are awfully loaded with talent, boy. Yeah. Really incredible. No way. If you watch, we just did last year, we inducted our first female boxer in the Connecticut Hall of Fame, Shelley Vincent. She had 2 great fights against Heather Hardy. If you ever get a chance, she was a wonderful fighter, and Heather Hardy's a great competitor, but and then now with the museum in Canastota saluting the women, we're getting to see so many, and of course we know who's coming down the line. There's a lot of great female fighters coming down the line too. But to see the Tories women, Jane Couch this year was nice. Wonderful person.
I got to spend some time with Alicia Ashley.
Another great person to spend time with. Yep.
I whenever I see her, like I saw her this year over at the VFW as we're getting ready for the for the parade. I'm like, Alicia Ashley with her penmanship, and I always tell her again that she always laughs because I know, that she knows she meets so many people. How can you remember somebody? But her penmanship is just amazing. I'm like, oh, it's Alicia Ashley, the English teacher. She laughs all the time, But she's just the nicest person.
They really are. The boxers, everybody says that, and they've said that over the years. Everyone says just how nice everybody is. You fell in love with Carmen Basilio and Billy Backus, and just so many of them. Bob Foster, Archie Moore came in my restaurant, had a nice conversation with him. Kenny Norton, Edward Joffrey came in my restaurant when I had it, and just so many good stories. These guys are just wonderful people to talk to. I feel so bad that near the end of so many lives, it gets so challenging for them.
Yeah.
Like Sandy Sadler, there's a talent, Sandy Sadler, that doesn't get enough credit. There's a lot of fighters that are very underrated. That I'd like to surface more.
I have a question for you that I just thought of that I have been thinking. I've been asking this question of people for a very long time. And if anyone's going to know this, it would be you. You're familiar with Marcellus Park, correct? Just on the road, I think it's 370, 376, whatever it is, the road that goes by Marcellus Park there.
Okay.
It's still there. It's a sign that says Spinks Fighting Camp. Do you know if there has any correlation? I've been this close to Michael Spinks, but I have yet to ask him.
I don't know. Good question.
Would be you.
I wish I did. There's pieces of camps. I know Kilbane's camp, part of his camp that he had is still around. I like finding these things. I'm digging through some of the places, but no, that does. Now you got me thinking about it. So now you're looking at.
If you come back up to Syracuse,
it's another show.
Over, I'll take you there.
What is the name of the town?
Marcellus, New York.
Yeah.
And it says the sign is very old. It's very old.
Wow.
But it's still legible, and it says the Spinks Fighting Camp or something like that.
Well, a lot of the guys trained around here and in the Adirondacks, of course, up that way, New York. Yeah. It's great places, great stories. It's incredible. I just, and it's so good for me because I got such a background in New York, and then, I do work in Florida and I do work in Connecticut, and Connecticut boxing has been just so fun and enjoyable, and just the people.
And you were speaking about that off camera prior about your experience with the Connecticut Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
With now.
A couple years ago, I got invited to join the board of directors, and they were nice enough to induct me last year into the museum with a heavyweight named Tony Grano, who's from here, who had a great amateur career and a good professional career. Shelley Vincent, who I mentioned, was inducted with me, and dynamite female fighter. So proud of all of them. Art Palullo, great promoter. And just the list of all the people that we induct each year. We're going to announce our inductees soon. We have a big annual event at Mohegan Sun, and we give awards out to different people. In addition to the inductees, last year we had Christy Martin. We have a Willie Pep Courage Award we give out every year. We gave it to Christy Martin last year.
Okay.
And so it was
Christy Martin, $1 Million Baby.
Yep. No, Christy Martin, who will soon have a movie out.
Okay.
Yeah, she just had her book sanctioned or purchased.
Didn't she play in the $1 Million Baby?
I don't know if she's in that or not, but
didn't she play the
Riker girl who was at Mohegan?
Oh yeah.
Was Louisa, what's her first name? Alicia Riker? Something, but she was a $1 Million Baby. Boy, gave a great performance, I think. But
I met her when I met Alicia Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were there. Because that was at the Fist Casting is when I met them.
Yep.
And at the same time, and they were giving speeches and stuff like that prior to the Fist Casting. And her persona on stage, completely different than what she portrayed, obviously, in the movie.
Oh, very much. But it fools you. That's a good point, Rick. And you see these guys and you're like, are they really going to be like that often? They're just so different, I mean, it's true, right, Tony? You meet somebody, and even you guys have had guys on from, you have had a lot of actors on, and people like that. And it's just nice to see that. And I was always thrilled in the music area when somebody lived up to the expectation I thought they had. Like Springsteen. It's just as nice off stage as you would expect him to be.
Right.
And so nice. Other guys, not so much, but it's nice.
Tony, what's that saying you always say? Be careful of
meeting your heroes. Yeah.
Careful. Boy, Tony, that's so true.
Yeah. I mean, we were lucky enough. We both met Sly Stallone, and we both had very positive experiences meeting him. And that was my hero growing up when I was 10 years old when Rocky came out.
Wow.
Well, I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't a little like, man, I hope I was like, I hope he's really nice. I hope he's not you didn't think so, but you don't know. You don't know these people.
I never got a chance to talk to Frank. Frank, I met a couple way back. Frank used to come a lot to the collector show up in Canastota. Frank is standing historian.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, we actually tried to ask him. I met Frank, what was it, 3 months ago? We had an interview with him
in Jacksonville, Florida.
Bourbon.
Wow.
And I was talking to him about possibly coming on with you because you're such a historian, and so is he. So we might have to try to piece that together still. We'll see.
Well, I know he's a big, he loves the periods I write about. He loves Ad Wolgast, who I love too.
Ad Wolgast, yep. And he likes Jimmy Wild.
Wolgast rivalry is, Frank is extremely gifted historian.
Oh, he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff.
Really, really one of the best, I think. And a great guy too, a great person. Yeah, I don't remember me, but I was volunteering at the museum at the time that I met him, or I was over at the collector's show too, and he was over there. And very nice man, very nice. And talk about talent. He's like his brother. Both of them are loaded with talent.
Oh yeah,
he's a fantastic musician. So
unbelievable.
What else you got on your list there, Rick? Anything else?
Like I said before. I mean, I know.
Yeah, we'll keep Mark on for 3 more hours.
We'll keep you here all night if we could, but we know you got a life and things to get to, and I absolutely want to have you on again and talk about even more stuff. But I'm trying to. I mean, I got a list of notes.
You can save that for another time. I mean,
if some of them correctly. But, I'm glad you like Kilbane.
Yeah, it was very. There was one thing I found very interesting too. Yes, both books were very, very good, and I'm looking forward to reading the other ones when I get them. I never, like I said before, with the 20 and 25 rounds, that I don't think I ever really recalled. I mean, we grew up in the area where boxing in our heyday was the 70s. Those were some big names coming through: Ray Leonard, Duran, Frazier, so on and so forth. But I never knew they used a gong.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And this is stuff that you start. And the other thing, I brought it up with somebody the other night. It's not only just that, but the other little things that you start saying, okay, well, if they use gloves that were illegal, should that fight still count on their record? Now, I've gone through and I found some with Kilbane where they only had 2-minute rounds. Now, should that count in his record, or should it not count? I mean,
right. Okay.
Start asking yourself, some of this stuff.
If it counted then, if that was the rules, okay, then
I guess
going back to baseball, right? Roger Maris with the asterisk.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still the league changed the rules, but when he did it, the rules were there.
Well, you can talk about the dead ball era, and you are a lifetime member of the Cooperstown National.
Yeah, I did a baseball book in the early years, and I started collecting baseball memorabilia in 1965. I'm aging myself here, right? So, but this was back, guys. I mean, this was back in the days when you'd walk around Cooperstown, you could stop, Earl Averill or Joe Cronin on a street corner and ask them something.
Right.
I mean, it was that kind of way about it. I mean, I would leave Cooperstown with hours and hours of tapes, hundreds of autographs, this,
Sure.
that, and the other thing. And it was just incredible. So I started writing some baseball articles, and Krause Publication says, baseball memorabilia is getting hot. Would you be interested in doing a book on autographs? Because there's a lot of fakes and things like that. So I'm like, well, as long as I can include other aspects of history in it, like the history of bats and things like that. So I ended up doing a book. Now, this is well before the internet. So I did not have access to the resources I've had now, nor did I know at the time how to do it. And but it helped out tremendously. It went through a lot of printings, but there were mistakes. There were big mistakes. The Hall of Fame made big mistakes, but because it saved them so much time and effort, they were nice enough to give me a lifetime donor membership, which is quite a thrill. I seldom use it, but when you take it out at Cooperstown, it's like they roll out the red carpet for you. And I'm not in. I was just lucky enough that
It's like the golden ticket to Willy Wonka, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The last time I was at Cooperstown, I got Warren Spahn's autograph.
Great.
Yeah.
Picture of Warren Spahn holding me when I was a baby.
Come on, seriously?
Oh, get out.
Wow.
I think that trumps your autograph, Rick.
I think so. But I can prove it's legit because I watched him sign it myself.
Yeah. I get a kick out of all that stuff, but the main thing is I really didn't collect autographs. I collected history. That's really what it boils down to. That's what's important to me now. I don't even like when we go up to Canastota.
Yeah.
I haven't got an autograph in Canastota in probably 15, 20 years at best. I don't even bother because, to be honest with you, it's more important for me to talk, listen, and photograph.
Right.
Yeah.
Photograph. I got some beautiful portraits of some of these people over the years. And I'm so proud if it's great because when I need a picture of Tyson, I've got it. I need a picture of Holyfield, I got it. I need a picture of Emmanuel Stewart, I've got it. And I finally was smart enough to build my own library so that I don't have to struggle for any kind of images.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
But that's why you'll see me so often in Canastota and right up there with cameras trying to get shots of these guys. So, and I don't know what I'm going to do sometimes. Maybe down the road a piece I'll do something on one of these people, and I'll be so grateful, like Willie, where I had enough pictures, candids, that it really helped out the book a lot.
Yeah.
Or even a boxing photo book. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun too. That'd be fun. There's nice ones out there.
Oh my God! With the collector show, like I usually work the collector show because of the memorabilia that they sell there, and it's the stuff that's so old. Some of it's pretty old and whatnot. I just find it fascinating, and then to hear, you see the boxers come in and they'll sign autographs, and and I've got, I was there when Layla Ali was there. I was right up there that year, and there was the trilogy year. I mean, there were some big names that came through that year.
Very big. I was lucky. I sponsored that show. You'll see in old pictures Baker Gallery in the background.
Okay.
I sponsored the collector show up to about, I forget what year it is, but I used to get them to sign gloves, photos, things like that, and for donations. A lot of it went in my restaurant at the time.
Nice.
Or I worked or I gave them out to employees, things like that. And,
Oh my God.
but for the days where I can tell you so many stories, with the old guys, the first 5-6 inductions, we had, the big guys, but I had my fair share back and forth with like LaMotta, and he was the toughest. I have so many LaMotta stories. I was really good friends with Vicky LaMotta, very good friends. So much so that I got copies of her wedding movies.
Oh my God.
That's how close I am to the family.
Wow.
So,
Now, were you owner of Bleachers when Sean, the pro wrestler?
No, we had not him. No, I wasn't there. I was there I sold out after the third year.
Okay.
We had Superfoot Wallace. We had
There was a big fight with a professional wrestler went there one night.
Wow. Okay.
And I thought it was Shawn
Michaels?
Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
And I guess he was, strutting his stuff or whatever.
We had so many people there.
The rumors just circulate, I'm
Oh,
just curious.
I remember one time it was football season, so and one of my partners brought Whitey Ford in and was sitting
Oh
on
my
his
God.
car, and everyone's going, "That looks like Whitey Ford." Nah, it's not Whitey Ford. And we never seen anything. And of course, the baseball team always came in because we were the players' bar, and there's two major bars that hosted the Syracuse Chiefs. One was Steve Grilly's bar,
Yeah.
and the other was us. And Grilly got the managers and some of the vets, and we got all the other guys.
Yeah.
So Steve knows a lot of stories like I do.
Oh, yeah. Well, we used to have our meetings. I played for the MSBL for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And all of our meetings, our startup league meetings, were always at Grilly's.
Yeah,
There.
change of pace, boy.
Yeah, change of pace. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And then he had his son. God, those guys are so talented, that family.
Yeah.
Amazing. But I like him a lot. There's no hard feelings, and we all stick together. It's the same with most of the boxing writers. I have my favorite boxing writers, and I know a lot of them, like Colleen Clay Moyle, who wrote a wonderful biography on Sam Langford.
Mhm.
And Jack Kavanaugh wrote the Tunney book, one of my favorite authors. Just so many great people. And when I retire, when the time comes, I like to spend most of my time promoting these other boxing writers.
Sure.
They're extremely talented. We're so lucky that boxing's taken on this whole new feel to it now.
Yes.
It didn't have maybe. I mean, to have people, and you've seen it firsthand, Rick. To have people, I'm sure you have too, Tony. People come up to you and talk to you about fights that took place in the 1920s and naming names, and you're like, oh wow, we've grown so much, as a fan base with knowledge. A lot to thank with Canastota for all those ringside chats. I love those. I met every one, and they do a wonderful job. You learn so much.
So awesome. So awesome. Mark, we can't thank you enough for coming on. And as Rick already said, we would love to have you back on, hear some Jake LaMotta stories or anything else you got brewing.
Yeah.
And, maybe we could put that Frank Stallone together with us too. That would be awesome.
I'd be honored to be on with Frank.
I have a Dempsey's restaurant menu hanging up right over there.
Sweet.
Next time you come on, or I'll take a picture of it and send it to you.
Yeah. I love Jack. Oh my gosh, I love Dempsey. Dempsey. Guys, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I forgot here. We want to put it where you can find Mark. I apologize. Go to readmarkallenbaker.com. Okay, and there's plenty of books to choose from, and there's a ton, as Rick said, a ton of boxing history that he's written about, and other stuff as well. Yeah, other stuff as well. So
the information is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a wonderful.
Thank you
so much, Mark. We had a pleasure. We had a great time. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Have a good night. Thank you for coming on.
Be good.
Wow.
Like you said, we would keep him on for 3 more hours. It's not fair to him.
No, I know. He's like, all right, guys, I'm done. Yeah, I want to go eat dinner or whatever. Yeah, I get it.
That was awesome. I would love to hear LaMotta stories and more stuff. Yeah.
But to be able to pick their brains on this type of on this stuff, no matter who we have on.
It's pretty cool because you see the final product. You see the final, the book.
Yeah.
It's like watching the movie, but what went into watching the movie? Who wrote it? The actors, the research, and why he chose that boxer. It's a really cool process that you see, and then the end result for the book.
Right. Well, I'm going to say this because I have these two at the moment. Okay. Titletown and Johnny Kilbane. Just finished up with this one. Okay. And I'm just about through this one. Okay. And again, thank you, Mark. Scotty, let me borrow this. I'm going to tell you this, and I mean this sincerely, folks. They don't read like an encyclopedia. They don't read like you're reading, the phone book. They're very interesting. They flow, and just the input of historical events that happened during this. If you're into that type of thing, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, good stuff.
Really kept my attention, and I'm not a big reader, unless it's the Sunday funnies. Or a good Batman comic book, but these kept my attention.
Oh my God. All righty. On that note, on Batman's note, there, we're gonna call it a night. Oh, all right. Yep.
Amazing work.
Oh yeah. Wait, I got the other books that he had on too. He talked about Willie Pep, and then he talked about Tony C. There you go. Look at that.
There it is, Tony C.
I want to check that one out. I want to get the Hemingway book too.
Yeah, I'm very interested in reading the Hemingway book as well.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Very,
Well-
very, very good. Very fast reads. Very informational. You will not be disappointed.
No, you won't. And we appreciate you tuning in, and we will see everybody next week. Enjoy.
Take care.